Realpolitik is the idea that pretty much states that nations will do what is most practical for themselves, to the detriment of other considerations like morality or ideology. So you get this dynamic where every nation is largely self-interested, creating this state of constant competition, economically, militarily, diplomatically, you name it. And of course, these nations could dialogue and work together to find the best way forward, but I mean, just look at any legislature on a good day. And those guys actually have to be on the same side. Geopolitics is not this hard, rigid thing, really. It's a constant game of push and pull where you must take notice of the ever changing landscape and reposition yourself accordingly. And I truly cannot think of many other things that embodies this, like the concept of balance of power. What do I mean when I say balance of power? Balance of power, in simple terms, is a state of geopolitical being where power is distributed among states in such a way that no singular state or group of states can dominate all others. The power in this context depends on what sort of world you're building. Usually, it's something important enough to fight and die for. In a diesel punk world, the country that can secure the most oil reserves is probably going to be a heavyweight. Or in a world where, I don't know, cheeseburgers can level cities, the country with the most McDonald's is going to be a force to reckon with. But generally, the two major ways nation states are considered powerful across historical and fictional contexts are usually militarily or economically. Military power is pretty simple and straightforward and just means country A would destroy country B in a dodgeball fight, except, they won't be using dodgeballs most of the time. And economic power means country C is the only country that has dodgeballs in the first place. So both A and B have to buy from them at whatever prices they decide. How does this picture look? Pretty unbalanced, right? Well, let's look at a scenario where country A would get sick of paying exorbitant prices for balls and realize if they figured out how to make their own dodgeballs, they wouldn't have to rely on C so much and they would be unstoppable. And country C would realize that if A has cracked the dodgeball business, they would be unstoppable. And so they call up country B and propose an alliance. And now A, which would have obliterated B or C easily on their own with their newfound dodgeball making skills, now faces a combined force that is more or less its equal. This creates a state of equilibrium because A can throw their weight around so much on the dodgeball front due to the fact that together the B and C alliance can counter that weight. So they decide to stick to name calling in the cafeteria. And economically, when it comes to the ball manufacturing frontier, C isn't the only game in town anymore since A figured out the business. So that also creates economic balance. But it's not always so straightforward. Cause let's look at this scenario where there's a new kid in school, country D, and this guy really, really likes dodgeball. In fact, he changed schools because he beat everyone at his old school. He immediately gets in A's face, and B and C see this as an opportunity they've been waiting for. The three of them jump A and win pretty easily, but C has a thought after the glorious victory. With A off the board, what stops D from dominating everybody else, right? So when B suggests getting A banned from gym class permanently, C refuses because if A got to stick around, even with limited minutes, then a potential A, B, and C dodgeball alliance would keep D from running around the gym unchecked. And this once again balances the equation because no one nation can gain a clear advantage over the others. Nation C, in our scenario, plays the role of the balancer. This is a country that shifts its own alliances to keep gym class peaceful. And a good example of such a country in real life is the United Kingdom historically, which fought against Napoleonic France but also against Germany, teaming up with France to do that later on. And so, yeah, if you want to get a greater insight on how this has worked historically, you could just look at how the United Kingdom has interacted with the rest of continental Europe for the past few centuries. Based on what I said at the beginning, they didn't do that out of the goodness of their hearts or anything. And it's what, considering their unique position of being an island and so to protect their interests on continental Europe, they needed to prevent one nation from gaining too much power all over the others, which, as we saw with Napoleonic France, led to Britain being pretty much shut out of European trade. And they figured that the cheapest way to protect said interests was by having a country on the continent that they could back against their rivals at any time. And this wasn't even terribly exclusive to Britain, as if you read through European military history, you notice that every country has pretty much fought alongside or against all other countries at some point or the other. And I think this really serves to hammer home the importance of preventing one nation from becoming too dominant, even if they just helped you out, because the thing with countries is that their interests are always changing. Your ally today could be your enemy tomorrow, and when that time comes, it's probably for the best that they can't stop you from buying dodgeballs. Off the backs of that, why is balance of power necessary? I think it's pretty simple, really. Nobody likes a big bully, which hegemon states usually are. And because when there's a country that is basically untouchable, they tend to do things like reshaping the world around them to better suit their interests. Like deciding who gets to be in charge of other countries, like we saw with Catherine the Great and the Polish throne, or Napoleon making his brother the king of Spain and stuff like that. And also they might just try and swallow up everyone around them, like Germany in World War II. So yeah, balance of power is something that will usually happen naturally if countries can help it, because like I said, countries are usually dead focused on their own interests, and remaining independent is usually way up there on the list of priorities. And like we've established, when one country gets too powerful, the sovereignty of those around them are threatened, amongst the whole other truckload of issues that could come up. Alright, considerations. I personally think balance of power in concept can be used in any genre where you have people who have interests. It's pretty much just the self-alliance shifting you get in stuff like Game of Thrones, but at sort of a higher level, and here being ultra ruthless isn't a trait that sets you apart, it's kind of the bar for entry. But the thing you need to consider is that the participants in your great game need to be able to realistically worry about each other. And when I say that, what I mean is it was realistic for Athens to worry about what Sparta was doing back in the day, because they were close enough to each other that Athens gaining more power could directly affect Spartans and vice versa. But the same couldn't be said for Rome and Han China, two powerful empires that coexisted for centuries, but due to the logistical and communicational challenges of your time, never had any real reason to worry about each other's influence. So if you want two countries on opposite ends of a really big map to see each other as rivals, then you need to give them something that enables influence to flow from one to the other, like a shared economic system or maybe a shared institution like a religion. And all of this has to be underpinned by a logistical and communication system that can span that distance consistently and reliably. Generally, the more rudimentary your world's tech level is, the more likely any conflicts between high-level political organizations will be restrained by geographical proximity. Like, compare my example of Rome and Han China to present day, where the United States has a presence in a place as geographically far from it as the Middle East, because the modern global system and technology have made it possible for a nation to spread its influence across the world more easily than ever before. So there you have it. If you made it this far, why not pop over into the comment section and tell me what sort of world you're building, or what fictional world has the most interesting politics in your opinion.